With Nvidia's RTX 3080 and 3090 launches out of the way now, we hone in on the RTX 3070. Oh boy, this is going to be a very interesting launch. Let's talk about 5 main things you should start planning for and knowing if you're even considering getting the RTX 3070. So let's get started. Hey guys, Tiago here with Classical Technology. If you like my content, remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. Is the 3070 something you're considering getting? So let's get right into it. Let's talk about 5 different things you should know now about the RTX 3070 if you're going to consider getting it. The number one thing is going to be the massive stock issues. I don't care how good the third-party partner cards and Nvidia beef up their websites. There's going to be so much demand for the 3070 that it might even be harder than a 3090 to get your hands on. I would assume that they're going to be, of course, making more 3070s just because it's a $499 MSRP GPU, much cheaper than the $1,500 3090. That's much more of a niche market. This is much more of a mainstream card. But now, if you factor in everybody that couldn't get a 3080 that actually wanted one, and then they couldn't get a 3090, even doubling their budget, now they're going to be like, I want a 3000 series GPU. The 3070 is the next focal point instead of overpaying for a 3080 on eBay or something like that. And I think that may be very problematic. Let's talk about that in point number 2. All right, now Nvidia and everybody are well aware of the extremely high demand for these new GPUs. They've been doing all sorts of fortifications to their websites to prevent bots and prevent all different types of issues and crashing. Is that going to be enough to mitigate the issues with the 3070 launch? I honestly don't really think it's going to do too much. I still think it's going to be that same, you're there at the computer, trying to refresh F5, and it's going to go from, notify me, maybe add to cart for a few seconds, and then sold out. In fact, the 3090 launch really wasn't any smoother than the 3080 launch. That sold out probably even faster. And of course, there are a lot less of those, so that I can kind of understand. The 3070 should be produced, I think, in higher quantities just because of the price and the popularity that's going to ensue. But I think that the demand is going to be so high that I don't know if whatever countermeasures Nvidia and the third-party partner websites or Newegg and all the partner sites that are selling these GPUs, I don't know if it's going to be enough to really mitigate the issues just because it's such an influx of demand for this particular GPU. Unless they develop some type of system where it's almost like Apple, if you order something, you get kind of put in a queue. At least they tell you a potential date in the future, not just sold out where you don't know where you can get one. So unless they develop some system like Apple or something like that, I think it's still going to be the same story that everything's sold out. Let's say in an ideal world, if they fixed all of the website issues and they can sort of avoid any type of bots, I still think the GPU would sell out in like a minute because I'm sure they're ramping up production not only for the 3080 and 3090, but I'm sure now after they saw the demand, they probably definitely are ramping up production for the 3070. It's not that uncertain anymore. People definitely want them, so I'm sure they're making as many as they can. So hopefully that will translate into a better chance during launch, but still because of the demand, I still think it's going to be sort of a tricky launch. The third thing you should know about the RTX 3070 aside from the launch, even if it's in stock, let's say if you can get a Founders Edition for $499, is it really worth it to get that? Is it better to get the 3080? Previously, I did a video saying that the 3070 was more than enough for most people, and I definitely think that's the case. If you can get it for $499, it represents an exceptionally good value. Nvidia has said that the performance will be at least equal to or better than the 2080 Ti, which for $500 is very, very impressive. Now, if for some reason 3080s were easier to find, then certainly that could be a plausible choice. It does have a little bit more VRAM and of the faster variety, so it definitely will have certain benefits, but then of course it's probably out of stock and the price is higher, and I don't think most people really even need that. So to answer the third point, yes, this GPU is definitely worth it, and that's why the demand is so high for it. And then the fourth point, we can agree that now around launch, definitely a great value GPU, as was the 3080. Not the 3090, that's just a little bit too expensive for the performance gain, but the 3080 at the MSRP of $699, great performance value. 3070, $499, equally great performance value. Now, if you really can't get your hands on a 3070, I think there may be a little bit more hope in the future, just because there are already leaks of a possible 3060 Ti, a 3070 Ti. There was even a leak of a 3070 Ti with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So that's going to be a faster GPU, probably a little more expensive, but not too much more. So you're going to have these different models coming out in the future in order to be able to better address these holes in the market caused by such high demand. And that gets us to our next point. Not everybody's playing at 4K, but for the people that do want to play at 4K, I'm sure you've seen the whole fiasco around the 3080 only having 10 gigabytes of VRAM. The 2080 Ti had 11, and of course the 3070 is going to have less than that. And while Nvidia said that even at 10 gigabytes of VRAM, it's not like it was going to start to bottleneck a lot of games, even running everything on max. But as more games are released that take more advantage, especially at 4K, of all different types of graphics elements, as Nvidia's technologies improve, it's possible that your 3070 with its lower amount of VRAM will not be anywhere near as future-proof as something like a 3070 Ti if it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, or even the supposed 3080 with 20 gigabytes of VRAM. That will give you definitely much more overhead and future-proofing as you start to gain more in 4K. Now, if you're playing at lower resolutions like 1080p or even 1440p, it's really not that big of a deal, and I think the 3070 definitely is pointed more at people like that instead of the 4K crowd. But I think a lot of people who get a 3070, especially knowing its performance is going to be 2080 Ti level, they may want to try 4K. So I think it actually is a pretty good starter 4K GPU, but just know as more you want to play 4K in the future, as games get more and more demanding, you may have to upgrade it to a more powerful 4K level GPU, maybe something with 16 or 20 gigabytes of RAM. And then the last point we'll talk about pertaining to the 3070, we've only spoken about 3080, 3090 in the Nvidia world, but remember, AMD is coming on October 28th. The 3070 launches October 15th, or at least attempts to launch, I guess, with the huge demand. I don't even know how many we'll be able to buy, but AMD is responding to Nvidia shortly thereafter, October 28th, with their RDNA 2 or Big Navi GPUs. Supposedly, these are going to have a lot of VRAM. These will be priced very competitively, and while they're definitely competing with Nvidia's higher-end GPUs, I don't think they're going to beat like a 3090 or possibly 3080, maybe very competitive, but I think the real battle may be around the 3070 level. Who knows, Nvidia may have a GPU that's going to be priced very similar to the 3070, but maybe eke it out in performance a little bit. The 5700 XT compared to the 2070 Super of the previous generation, it was priced under it, so it represented a pretty good value. Of course, the performance wasn't quite as good as the 2070 Super, and it did have some driver issues. So with the next generation, if AMD can have much better optimized drivers so people don't have these issues, and they can price a GPU around that 3070 level that's at least equal or maybe beating it a little bit, I think that's definitely going to be very interesting. And of course, I'm sure AMD is watching all the stock issues that happen with Nvidia, so they know that the demand is out there. So hopefully they're ramping up production, as well as making sure that whatever websites are going to sell these GPUs on launch, they're going to be fortified against bots and against various different issues that encroached on the Nvidia launch. So it seems, at least from now, from the little murmurs that we're getting, it seems like they're going to have a pretty nicely competitive GPU. And of course, we're not going to know for sure, and the chances of you getting an RTX 3070 on launch day are probably going to be small anyway, judging from the previous recent launches. So I think it's going to be probably sometime in November where we really see more stock of these GPUs coming out, and Nvidia and AMD in the market. That way, I think for this holiday season at least, you'll be able to make a much better decision on what GPU is the best value for your dollar. So to summarize, a lot of people are definitely waiting for the RTX 3070. Let's talk about the 10 series owners. Basically the 1080, 1060, 1070, 1080 Ti, even Titan XP owners who decided to skip the 20 series generation GPUs just because they didn't provide enough bang for the buck to make it worth it for them. You know, RTX really was in its infancy, wasn't worth it. 2080 Ti was a very expensive GPU compared to the 1080 Ti. Now, Is the 3000 series going to be a big reason for these 10 series owners to actually upgrade? Of course it is, because a 3070 at $499 is less than they were paying for a 1080 Ti back in the day, and that's going to perform better than a 2080 Ti and considerably better than their 1080 Ti, which was pretty much the top Pascal series 10 series GPU. It was sort of at the top. You do have the Titan XP. They made the Star Wars edition as well, which runs a little bit faster than the 1080 Ti, but not by much. For the most part, the 1080 Ti is the top dog, and the 3070 is going to absolutely crush it for $499. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video on the 3070 GPU. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys on the next video.